Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ, and I teach theology. This is a podcast on the StarQuest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 336, and we're covering Gaudium et Spes 57. That discusses how we need to seek what is above in culture. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican or frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday, we talked about how cultures are changing due to globalization and technology, and we are more aware we can make culture and need to do it well. Today, we are continuing Chapter 2, the proper development of culture. In that chapter, we start Section 2, some principles for the proper development of culture. And within that, the topic is really eternity and seeking truth, even in science, are important when considering culture. Paragraph 57, which we're covering today, has 6 subparagraphs. We'll read them in 4 parts. A, we need to seek to understand this world in light of eternity. B and C, man develops himself in culture through both physical and academic work. D and E, methods of physical science don't work for all areas of knowledge and culture. And F, commitment to truth can prepare for the gospel. So let's begin on A, talking about how we understand this world in light of the resurrection and our time forever with Jesus. A, Christians on a pilgrimage towards the heavenly city should seek and think of those things which are above. This duty in no way decreases, rather it increases, the importance of their obligation to work with all men in the building of a more human world. Indeed, the mystery of the Christian faith furnishes them with an excellent stimulant and aid to fulfill this duty more courageously, and especially to uncover the full meaning of this activity. Wonders gives to human culture its eminent place in the integral vocation of man. So we start this section on principles of culture, talking about this idea that's so important of eternity, of our time with God, of our resurrection, of what we have the world to come. It isn't just here, but we have this life which he is looking to look forward to. This is our true happiness. When we talk about happiness, which is the first thing we talk about in moral theology, we often define it as beatitude. Beatitudo, as Aquinas says, St. Thomas Aquinas. And that is the complete and perfect possession of the full and total good. That is not something we can get here. We need to get that in eternity with heaven. And this eternity leads us to work hard now. It isn't just kind of like, oh, let's sit back and be lazy. No, this should lead us to work. And culture should be changed by this reality. It gives activity meaning. Our eternity, our life with Jesus, gives meaning to our daily life. All of a sudden, our physical acts are kind of, cleaning up the house or whatever, has a spiritual, cultural meaning. Moving on to B and C, they are about how man develops himself in culture through both physical, B, and academic, C, work. B, when man develops the earth by the work of his hands or with the aid of technology, in order that it might bear fruit and become a dwelling worthy of the whole human family, and when he consciously takes part in the life of social groups, he cares of the design of God manifested at the beginning of time, that he should subdue the earth, perfect creation, and develop himself. At the same time, he obeys the commandment of Christ, that he place himself at the service of his brethren. C. Furthermore, when man gives himself to the various disciplines of philosophy, history, and of mathematical and natural science, and when he cultivates the arts, he can do very much to elevate the human family to a more sublime understanding of truth, goodness, and beauty, and to the formation of the considered opinions which have the universal value. Thus mankind may be more clearly enlightened by the marvelous wisdom which God from all eternity, composing all things with him, rejoicing the earth, delighting in the sons of men. So here we want to begin by noting that all work has dignity. In our society today, unfortunately, there is this kind of attitude that certain work is more dignified. And there can be, in an accidental way, certain dignity that is greater. But there is a dignity of working, of changing the world, even in physical things. Someone I know is a plumber. Someone else I know is a lawyer. And I don't think, this guy, both are men supporting their family. I don't go over and say, you're just a plumber or whatever. No, he's doing good work. He mainly does new constructions and things like that. Not so much the guy you call when you need to get your drains cleaned. But all these houses have plumbing because he did that, because he put it in right and he built it right. And all these people probably never thought about that and didn't thank the plumber for fixing up, but it was done and it was great for them. All of our work has to carry out God's plan and help the common good. All of it. And there is a culture of different jobs in different fields. There is a good culture often in blue-collar work and often in academic work. And then C really gets into various areas of academic work or cultural aspects, more, arts and music and theater and things, and how this helps us to elevate humanity and see the beauty of reality. It enlightens men. It gives light to who we are. Now, moving on to D and E, they talk about methods of physical science don't work for all areas of knowledge and culture. D, in this way, the human spirit, being less subject to material things, can be more easily drawn to the worship and contemplation of the Creator. Moreover, by the impulse of grace, he is disposed to acknowledge the Word of God, who before he became flesh in order to save all and to sum up all in himself, was already in the world as the light which enlightens every man. John 1. E. Indeed, J's progress in science and technology can foster a certain exclusive emphasis on observable data and an agnosticism about everything else. For the methods of investigation which these sciences use can be wrongly considered as the supreme rule of seeking the whole truth. By virtue of their methods, these sciences cannot penetrate to the intimate notion of things. Indeed, the danger is present that man, confiding too much in the discoveries today, may think that he is sufficient to himself and no longer seek the higher things. Subparagraph D here was pretty straightforward. I think is almost obvious that we as human beings were drawn to both material and physical things. And at times, we need to let go of these physical things so we can more focus ourselves on God. That is there's a whole bunch of parables in the New Testament, like the rich man who builds all his grain silos and things like that. But I think that that's a general idea, a general principle. And here we see how grace works through nature. Grace builds upon nature, works through nature. Now, science here is good in seeking and analyzing observable data. It's a good thing to have. It develops knowledge, it helps us in technology. But the danger and the challenge is to understand that it's not the only way to get to truth. I don't get to philosophical truth through scientific investigation. A lawyer uses some methods of science, but they often don't need they need different degrees of certainty than a scientist to say, did this person, rob this bank or things? And science is unable to analyze what's non-physical. The object, what it's able to analyze, is what could be observed, what could be measured, which is the physical. But these type of things, the spiritual, our soul, our God, can't be measured. And the danger is if we think that just this scientific or observable reality is how we can get truth, then it leads away from higher things because we think, the only way to get truth is through this method, but this method can't talk about God, can't talk about the soul. That is where your presuppositions, your idea that there is nothing of knowledge outside the physical give you your conclusions, but aren't actually. But your problem is that you took wrong presuppositions, and that's what results in that conclusion. Now, moving on to 57F, our last one today. Commitment to the truth can prepare for the gospel. Let's read it. F. For those unfortunate results, however, do not necessarily follow from the culture of today, nor should they lead us into the connotation of not acknowledging its positive values. Among these values are included scientific study and fidelity toward truth in scientific inquiries, the necessity of working together with others in technical groups, a sense of international solidarity, a clearer awareness of the responsibility of experts to aid and even to protect men, the desire to make the conditions of life more favorable to all, especially those who are poor in culture or deprived of the opportunity to exercise responsibility. All these provide some preparation for the acceptance of the message of the gospel, a preparation which could be animated by divine charity through him who has come to save the world. Now, the thing is, from science, it's not inevitable that we're going to have this kind of materialism that denies the faith. There are certain scientists who have that, but that's not deterministic from the idea of science. And so we need to see the positive values of studying science and seeking truth, things like that. And when we seek truth in these other areas, in science and things like that, or we seek solidarity, these can become a preparation for the gospel. If I am seeking truth in every area, that's going to help me prepare for the gospel. If someone else sees a Christian who seeks truth in every area, that helps them think, okay, the gospel might be true. And that's an important aspect today when we step out into the world. Because too often, Christians think, okay, I believe Jesus, therefore whatever else, and then they spout things that are just untrue. And that's not helpful for sharing the gospel. This concludes today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. I do this podcast on a volunteer basis, and my local religious community relies on donations to pay our bills. If you want to support my community, you can go to patreon.com/frmatthewlc. There's also a link to that and a one-time donation on my own website, frmatthewlc, so just Father, but the shortened Matthew LC for Legionaries of Christ, my community, and then .com, obviously. You can also donate to help support StarQuest at sqpn.com/give. Tomorrow we'll continue with the next paragraph of Gaudium et Spes 58, which is on the salvific message and culture. Please to understand to learn more about Vatican II, which can provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. Go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan.